The lopsided nature of the 2022 Formula 1 calendar means the summer break isn't really the halfway point of the season, but it's still a great time to take stock of each team's campaign so far. Every team will spend time over August chewing over what went well and, much more importantly, what must be improved when the season resumes in Belgium at the end of the month. Perhaps our report cards can provide some pointers for them. Myself, Scott Mitchell and Ed Straw have put our heads together to assess every team based on their own pre-season expectations, the quality of the cars they've produced, but above all else, how they've executed their 2022 campaign so far. If you've got a rubbish car but you've done a great job with it, you do get boosted up, and if you've got a really fast car but you've underachieved, that's going to knock you down. No prizes for guessing who the likely contender for that last point is. Several are achieving more than just a passing grade, but almost every team has an element of must do better about their 2022 season. While Alfa Romeo and Haas, which Williams beat last year, have climbed the order, Williams has slipped back. Its last in the championship, has the slowest car on average, and has only bothered the point scorers twice thanks to Alex Albon's strong drives in Australia and Miami. Only 5 times in 26 attempts has a Williams driver escaped Q1, with Nicholas Latifi's excellent wet weather qualifying at Silverstone the only time it's made Q3. There have at least been signs of recent improvement, with a major upgrade package introduced at Silverstone that replaced its Mercedes-esque narrow sidepod design with a version more reminiscent of Red Bull. That's given the car more downforce, but it has made it more peaky and wind sensitive. The team trackside has done a decent job with limited machinery, and glimpses of pace plus Albon's peaks have stopped the season being a total failure so far. But the performance has been disappointing, with a car below even the most modest expectations, so Williams gets an E. As part of Aston Martin's 5-year plan to be a title challenging F1 team, it expected to hit the ground running with the new technical regulations this year. That has not happened, and while its ambitions and improving resources are being well deployed with a strong development program, the performance is still lacking, more so in qualifying than in race trim. There have been some encouraging peaks from the AMR22, especially since being heavily revised for the Spanish Grand Prix and upgraded again in a significant way a few races later for the British round. Plus, the race team has generally done a good job to hit those peaks. That's why Aston Martin has scored points in 8 of the last 10 races. But they are only minor points finishes, and ultimately that reflects a season so far lagging behind expectations both internally and externally, and that means a D-. Having been a strong midfield force in recent seasons, AlphaTauri has slipped back in 2022 and is having a difficult time under the new regulations. After starting off reasonably well, the AlphaTauri AT03 has lost ground, and neither Pierre Gasly nor Yuki Tsunoda have scored points in the last 5 races. AlphaTauri has brought upgrades most recently to the French Grand Prix, but it has fallen away from the midfield pack and also had the 7th fastest car over the course of the season. And it's only been able to turn that into 8th place in the championship thanks to struggling to get the best out of its car consistently. Aside from a 5th place finish in Azerbaijan for Gasly, AlphaTauri has been limited only to minor points with just a half dozen top 10 finishes. That's not good enough for a team that was expected to be a stronger midfielder. Like Aston Martin, but for different reasons, it merits a D-. Haas sacrificed its entire 2021 season so it could make the most out of the 2022 rules, and that has clearly paid off with a much more competitive campaign. The launch specification was clearly more refined than many rivals, a legacy of that head start Haas had given itself, and that allowed the team to make a bright start to the year. Good thing that was the case, given the testing spec was used by both cars until Hungary at the end of July, and Mick Schumacher is actually still waiting to use Haas's first and only planned upgrade of the season. The limited development is a problem, because while Haas has managed to use its triumphant launch spec car for quite a while and continue to get good performance out of it, it needs upgrades to keep fighting in the upper midfield. The pace has generally fallen away as the season has progressed, and while this has been a positive year so far, one big negative is that while the Haas was most competitive, it dropped way too many points. Sometimes that's been through reliability, sometimes through driver errors, and sometimes just because pace or strategy have let it down on Sunday. Given the peaks of the car, Haas should be closer to Alfa Romeo than AlphaTauri in the championship, so it's a D+, which might seem harsh, but Haas simply isn't maximising its potential. Alfa Romeo needed a good start to the new rules cycle and got it with a car that was consistently in the top 10 and, unlike most of its rivals, close to the minimum weight limit. Add to the mix a revitalised Valtteri Bottas and it made for 6 points finishes in the first 7 races. But since then, Alfa Romeo's performance has fallen away, with just one more race in the points when Bottas and teammate Zhou Guanyu finished 7th and 8th in Canada. Reliability problems have also cost the team, with a total of 8 retirements this season. Improvements have been made to the car in terms of its rear end stability in faster corners, while a change in Ferrari clutch parts has tackled its weakness off the line. Alfa Romeo had a very strong start to the year and still looks decent in the midfield, but its grade gets dragged down to a C- because it's simply not as quick as it was, and the car's also awfully unreliable as well. McLaren's start to 2022 was blighted by chronic brake problems in the Bahrain pre-season test, which also hurt its performance in the race at the same place a week later. There have been some knock-on effects from that as well, but the main disappointment from McLaren is its up and down form. The car has had a couple of clear weaknesses, notably that it has more drag than expected and it struggled with low speed traction in high temperatures. But on the weekends, everything is working as it should. The McLaren is right where it should be, leading the midfield and even sniping at the underachieving top teams in qualifying. Many were hoping or expecting McLaren to chip away at the big teams with the rules overhaul, but ultimately this is a team still limited by its infrastructure. Realistically, consolidating 4th was the main expectation. With that in mind, getting jumped by Alpine is a disappointment. The pace is there to address that, but so far it all adds up to a very middle of the road season, and that commands a C. Alpine has the 4th fastest car, is 4th in the Constructors' Championship, and it has been at the forefront of F1's midfield battle at pretty much every race. With a steady stream of upgrades that have generally worked as hoped, Alpine has successfully improved its car and tackled the race pace weakness it had early in the year. Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon have racked up 19 points finishes between them, although never in a higher position than 5th, even though Alonso did give Alpine its high point by qualifying 2nd in the wet in Canada. The engine has also improved significantly and is now reckoned only to be giving away a fraction in terms of performance. Alpine is probably about where it should be despite its full work status given where it was coming from in 2021. But better reliability and a more consistent start to the season would make it more comfortable in 4th, so we're giving Alpine a B-. Good, but with room for improvement. Mercedes is fortunate that execution makes up such a big part of our grading system because on pure performance, it has spent most of the season on the back foot. The world champion team is still recovering from its slow start, but has at least shown good fortitude and sensible development to be able to work its way out of the hole it found itself in early in the year. Race pace is a clear positive, even though Mercedes does generally lack compared to Ferrari and Red Bull. If Hungary's sudden qualifying breakthrough is sustained into the second half of the year, Mercedes will be a more consistently formidable threat. Judging it up to now, it's impossible to overlook 2 standout qualities that have allowed it to overachieve versus its raw pace. The team and its 2 drivers, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, have always managed to pick up the pieces with strong race performances, and that has been augmented by excellent reliability. This is not the season Mercedes wanted, but it's better than its car performance probably deserves, and it's on an upward trajectory. So, B-. The Ferrari F1 75 is a superb car, powered by an engine that you can argue is the strongest on the grid. It's won 4 races and has on average the fastest car. Considering Ferrari is coming off the back of 2 winless seasons, being 2nd in the Constructors' Championship and a consistent frontrunner seems like a superb year. And yet, given Ferrari has 8 poles out of 13 and lost potential victories in Spain, Monaco, Azerbaijan, Britain, France and Hungary to a combination of unreliability, strategic blunders and driver errors, it's clear the race team has let down the design team. Ferrari should be leading both championships, but it's somehow only 30 points ahead of struggling Mercedes in the Constructors thanks to a litany of mistakes in a season of underachievement given the pace of its car. Terrible execution forces us to give Ferrari a C, but let's make it a C+, given the obvious highlights. Red Bull's recovery from a very weak position since the Australian Grand Prix has been astonishing. At that point, Max Verstappen had retired twice in 3 races, and he has since admitted he thought that at best he would be catching up in the championship by the end of the season. Instead, he and Red Bull went into the summer break knowing that they just need to have a sensible run to the end of the year to win both titles comfortably. The hallmarks of Red Bull's surge have been strong, decisive strategy calls and excellent execution from Verstappen. As much as Ferrari's season has imploded, Red Bull and Verstappen have been very deserving of their successes. But Verstappen's also stressed the need to improve certain areas, like small enduring reliability concerns, the heavy car still being over the weight limit and that hurting Red Bull in qualifying, and a slightly weak front end that upgrades alone haven't been able to cure. It's an A, no question, but make it an A- to signify that lingering room for improvement. That's our grading of every team so far, so let us know what we got right and wrong in the comments, and feel free to leave your own marks for the teams as well. If you're not already part of our gang, then click the button to subscribe and join us for everything that happens over the rest of the 2022 F1 season.